What is going on? Welcome to Coffee and Conversation with your host, me, Kevin Smith. Looking forward to conversation number 16. Before I do that and we start talking, I do want to talk about the Java of the day. It's Coffee Masters. Hey, I got this off of Amazon, and so it has different country flavors. So the one I got tonight is from Kenya. All right, so go on Amazon and get it. It's called Coffee Masters, and then I got the Kenya one. All right, drinking tonight. All right, so again, conversation number 16, perspective versus perception. Perspective versus perception. So I definitely am looking forward to tonight. I got two good friends of mine that are going to be on this podcast with me tonight. So I'll introduce both of them first. I do have my good friend Gary Ward. So I'm definitely happy that he's in the building tonight. Well, not in the building, but he's going to join me from his house. But we are definitely looking forward to the conversation. And then I got my line brother from my military frat, Cyro 5 Military Fraternity Incorporated. I got my line brother Travion Amir, who has his own podcast called First Formation. So, fellas, where you at?
What's good? What's good?
Not much. How y'all doing? Good to see y'all. Good to
Good
see
man.
y'all.
How's it going, fellas?
Good,
I'm
good,
good,
good.
pretty good.
So this is what I want to do. I want y'all to just introduce yourselves, and then we'll jump right into it, and then we'll continue on with the conversation. So, go ahead, Gary.
Man, like Kev said, I'm Gary Ward, originally from Detroit, but I do have on a Yankees hat. I got plenty of hats. This is just the one that I chose for today. Uh, but yeah, my name is Gary Ward, originally from Detroit, Michigan. Living here in Texas now, and met Kev at church, and we have been locked in ever since, man. Just a all around good brother, man. So I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Okay, okay. I'm not gonna mess with you because I'm gonna let Trevion tell you who his football team is, and we'll go from there.
If he, no, I'm gonna go. Yeah, go ahead. I'm interested to hear what this is.
So, of course, like you said, my name is Trey Beyond Amir. Everyone knows me as Trey. If you follow me on social media or via my or podcast, First Formation Morning Sports Talk, that's Trey the Commish. But in state, it's I'm saying always a good thing. Of course, like you said, I know Kevin being one of his line brothers, Cyro 5 Military Fraternity Incorporated. And so the perception is, I'll give you this. If you follow me, like you said, you know who the team is, but a perception that we're talking about perceptions and perspectives, in which my perception and my perspective, that's just what it is one of the same, is that the quest for sis ends 2 weeks from now, and the San Francisco 49ers will be victorious. So, you know what I'm saying? Y'all can
Oh,
deduct and
so
deduce
that
what you want from there, but that's what it is.
so your
What's going
team
on?
is the 49ers.
I am a 49ers fan, yes.
So crazy thing. I lived in Vegas for 12 years, and I got two good brothers, Kenny and Robert. They FaceTime me after the game because I'm from
Mhm.
Detroit. They
Okay.
had to rub it in. I was texting them. I was talking trash in the beginning. I should have, sometimes you just gotta know better, and when you know better, you do better. And I didn't
Facts.
know better because I'm texting in the beginning. And this looked like this thing was over before it started, and then right on cue,
Perception and perspective.
it wasn't neither one of them. I'm gonna look in this camera. It wasn't neither one of them. It wasn't. They didn't use neither one of them with 8 7 minutes to go on 4th and 3. They didn't use neither one of them. They didn't use logic. They didn't use discretion. Did nobody even flip a coin to find out what we should do in that moment.
Okay.
Them dudes was already in Vegas because they said we're gonna go for it.
But that's your perception.
That's your perception. That's your perception. Yeah, perception is an individual's reality. And so in that case, that is your perception. Your perception was it was lock and step, it was good. I'm very sure half the nation believe that.
Believe what? I believe that they was gonna kick the field goal. That's what Jesus told me. We must don't go to the same church because God told me kick the field goal. He said, I created you to kick, and you got a kicker. I put all these pieces together. That's why y'all a team, and I gave you a kick. I blessed you. I gave you the blessing. The blessing was on the sideline.
Oh my gosh.
And you chose to listen to that little crazy dude on your shoulder.
So we gonna move past this because I really can't talk because my team got to exit.
I'm gonna get a close up on that one. Hey.
But anyway, all right. So we are talking about perception. I'm sorry, perspective versus perception. So I just wrote this down because I mean this is a interesting topic, and if y'all watched my the conversation 15 last week with Taisha, she talked about perspective, and that word just kept lingering with me through the week, and that was the thing that just made me say, okay, I needed to talk about this in the next show. But then I looked up perspective, and then I saw perception. So I was like, perspective versus perception. So Trey, Gary, let's talk about it. So what do y'all look at when you first? Let's talk about perception. What do you look at it from your viewpoint when we talk about perception?
Man, it's always, a sense of how you see things, and depending on like how you are brought up, how you're discipled or mentored, all of the above, that's where you're going to perceive a lot of the things from. So if you haven't dealt with trauma, if you haven't dealt with a lot of your issues, something good can come your way, and the perception of something good can still mean bad because you're paranoid or scared or it's not familiar with good things happening. It seems like bad stuff is always happening. It just depends on where you are at that present moment in time, because something good could be right in front of you, but if you haven't dealt with you, then you can perceive anything. It don't matter if it's good. It can be $1 million. You still will have a broke perspective. Even with $1 million, it's possible.
So,
perception. I don't know which one. I forgot.
What was a perception or perspective?
Perception. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So you was on point. So of course, like of course, as we see it, the definition, the ability to become aware of something, and a thought of senses. So of course, when you think the senses, we thought, we always talk about things like, okay, got my spidey senses tinglings when we talk from a cultural standpoint, or just like, being men of God, or just in general, where you feel like you get discernment. And like you said, like you was told that the kicker was placed, he was there. So it is, again, as we stated, that was your perception. Our perception is that was your perception. Your perception is that, that was what it is. So when you look at it, how do you see your perception is just that. And for me, like, I see things in a certain way in which which is going to come into the conversation. It starts to kind of curve and inform your perspective of what it is that you're viewing, what you're seeing. So it's just a matter of, seeing and kind of feeling what it is that you're seeing and feeling like and then you make a move from there. For me, that's what I do.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to perspective. How do you all view perspective?
It's along the lines of hindsight. You know, your perspective changes when you have, you know, gained or obtained a certain level of knowledge via good or bad. You know, your perspective on a person was one way in one season. They either backstabbed you or did something, and now your perspective has changed of that relationship and what that is. And that's, man, that's life. You know, we go into jobs, we go into church, we go into different situations. Our perspective in the beginning, like anything, is always exciting and invigorating, all of the above. And then as you go through life and go through the motions of a thing, man, we can lose perspective like real easy on what, you know, got us there in the first place, whether it be relationship, church, business, your goals, your dreams. Perspective is always something you want to have so you can keep your eye on the prize, and then also pay attention to the things that you really need to focus on, because perception will tell you that perception will tell you, man, something can go wrong right now. Why go for that dream? Why do this? Why do that? Why go to that church? Why, you know, that the perception of the thing, how we perceive it. But your perspective, if you have some healing and you have knowledge or revelation, you can walk into any situation with that and be armed with the proper perspective and not be fooled or swayed by your perception.
True that. I can caveat on that. Definitely, of course, in state, simply put, a point of view, how you view things, or how you bring it in. Again, bringing it into the perspective. Although they are different, they are so much intertwined. It's crazy. Like you can have one without the other, or you can definitely have them together. But I mean, I guess you could say in a nutshell, a point of view, to have a point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it was mentioned, I'm writing stuff down as we had this conversation, trauma and
Mm.
and I'll give an example, and I want y'all to just talk about this because when I heard it, I had to write it down because that actually happened to me at one of my first jobs here when I moved to Dallas as a supervisor. So there was a perception from one of the ladies that worked for me. So what happened was I would go in every day, talk to her, speak to her. I was supervisor over 10 women. In my department, I was the only male. It was 20 of us. There was another female that was over the other ladies in my department. So I would come in, I'll speak to everybody. But this particular one lady would find it offensive, and she didn't know how to take me. And so, she would be just so standoffish, and I couldn't figure out why. I didn't know because she worked there before me, so I didn't know she had applied for the same job. So as time went on, it started getting worse. She started disrespecting me, and I
Mm.
was like, I can't have that. So I had my supervisor, and we met, and so it came to it to where she told me that every time she sees a black man, she was a white lady. Every time she sees a black man, that she got scared because she was physically assaulted by a black man. So her perception was that every black man was going to hurt her. So she had to put up her defense and she had to act a certain way. And that's why she was standoffish. But after we had our conversation, that put things back into perspective for her to understand that not every black male that she sees is trying to hurt her. So I wanted to get an example because it touched on both perception and perspective. But I want you all to talk about it. But when I heard trauma, it made me think of that situation.
So I would, and what you were saying, I mean, it's an unfortunate. You know, say, of course, you think about that. That's like a woman gripping her purse, as you know, saying, as a young African American man walks by or something like that. But that's a whole different story. So in hearing what you're saying is like one thing begets another. You as you were saying, like she poured basically her perception of what due to what she did made her view you in a certain way, and that starts to tap into another whole thing. So it really comes down to the point of view. But it's one thing I really live by, right? And it's that once, because at end state is, I wonder what her perception. You said y'all became cool, y'all was good after that.
Yeah. Yep.
So one thing I live by is when once there's this, you perceive something as one way, right? At that point, when you perceive it and you inform me of your perception of it, I give you the perspective of what it is I am doing, or whatever, what I'm trying to put out there. Now, at the point in which I give you my perspective, it is up to you to change your mind and have a different perception. If you don't do as such, then I mean, I can't do anything about that. So that perception is like almost a situation where I use another sports analogy, so I'm gonna try to tone it down as much as I can. But it's like always, saying the perception of a lot of people believe LeBron is better than Jordan, right? You know what I'm saying? That's going to be a speculative situation. But that's why he shakes his head. But you know what I'm saying? That's a perception. I mean, people perceive that type of stuff. Like that's a perception, honestly. That we're never going to be able to find out the real, if that is the case, is all based on a whole bunch of things in different ways. And you can utilize it, and depending on your argument, you can make that perception be as a reality on either sorts. So it's just a matter. It's crazy how that happens, but it's the perception is a powerful thing.
I talked about that. That perception was that all, and that was due to some form of trauma that happened prior. Like before even meeting you. So that's what I said. Like we walk into situations based on certain things that we've been through, and when you don't have a proper perspective, not even taking the time out to even think like this man is in a professional environment. He walks in every day and he's speaking to everybody. So there's different aspects to who you are as a person that's right in front of her, but she chose to not have the proper perspective, to not even see, to ignore all of that, and her perception and her triggers perceived who you were. Like you're in a leadership seat. It wasn't like you was the janitor scooting by with a bucket and just peeking in at the ladies. You know, now that would cause anyone to be like, what I mean, like, to have her to have those type of feelings. But here you are every morning. Hello, good morning. I'm the leader. I got your back. Obviously you had to, approve things for her and do all these different things. Regardless, y'all was in a work environment. So, but the fear wouldn't allow her to have the proper perspective.
Okay. I appreciate that. So let's move on. I got a question for both of you all. Can perception be good or bad or both?
Absolutely. I mean, people say stuff all the time and perceive it wrong and perceive things about people and get it absolutely wrong. And I've sat and had conversations with my wife, and we're sharing and perceiving and just like looking at things and having insight and wisdom into stuff. And it's like, man, like yo, like whoa, and we'll get those revelations, through those conversations, and they absolutely can be. I mean, it all depends on, once again, your perspective.
And of course, again, agreed. Like that is so true. Like it really is in the eye of the individual. Like when it comes down to
Mhm.
it, how when you're having a conversation, and it comes out as like, how do I see this? You know what I'm saying? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? Am I is it waving on the both of them? Is it if I turn to the left, now it's a bad, turn to the right, I'm on the good side? Like it can go in so many ways, and it really is predicated upon the environment, the people that you're engaging with. You know what I'm saying? Someone may be able to sway you in a situation to where your thought might have been a bad perception or perspective. You get to having a conversation about it. Now that perspective has changed, or it goes vice versa, or you basically become even kid where he's like, you know what, I ain't got no dog in this fight, so I would just go with the latter, or I'll go with the crowd.
Okay. So, um, so I wrote something down because I started thinking about it, and we're sharing on social media, but I think about social media and the perception that's out there. You can look at a person, and so I want us to talk about this because this is where a lot of people um, mess. I don't want to say mess up, but people get into this situation of when you get on social media, you get on Facebook, you get on YouTube, you get on Instagram, and you start seeing people, and people like are living the life, the perception of living life because they traveling, they doing all of this, and so you look at it and you say to yourself, hey, man, I like that's what I want to do, but the perception is you're looking at it, just looking at it from a different lens because you're not really understanding that the same two people that you see on social media that might be lovey-dovey on social media, him or her might be in an abusive relationship and abusing the other person, but they get on social media to put up this facade, and I think that we have gotten to a point in 2024, and it's been going on. Is that you get onto social media, and I can understand why some people don't have social media because it's just sometimes it's a facade for a lot of people because they feel like and some people don't really like themselves, so they look for the likes, they look for the the glamour behind it. But when I think of the word perception, so many people go to social media and look at the perception of how people are living, but that's just what they post. You're not with them 24/7, so you don't know how they're truly living. So I just want to talk about that because I think social media has played a lot into perception.
So,
Yeah, I
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Wait, no, go ahead,
No,
Gary.
no, I was gonna say a crazy trend popped up, man. It was right around the time I think the documentary or something like that with the Menendez brothers came out as we talking
Mm,
about social media, and the perception was that the dad was messing with them, and that's what drew them to kill their parents. Mom knew about it, all of the above. So where they took the lives of their parents. The power of social media is crazy because it had people sympathizing and saying free them, because the perception was that their dad took advantage of his own kids and make or whatever. So of course, like what would you do? Like I'm defending my brother. We've been taken advantage of by our father, and our mother knew about it and told no one. So we killed them. That was the perception, and everybody sympathized and said free them. That thing is powerful, man. So when you get on the internet and you got the money and you showing off all of your assets and everything, and you like, man, you want to, y'all not doing it like we are, and all of the above, man. It puts so much unnecessary pressure and gives you the wrong perspective on what it takes to actually be successful and to be in a good relationship, because you are getting a lot of the fluff and not, the reality. So as they posted those things about the brothers on TikTok or whatever it is, nobody gave them the proper perspective on what really happened and what took place. You gotta dive into the story a lot more than just the clips and the things that play on your heartstrings that have you have some type of sympathy for the actions that those two guys took, out on their parents. So social media, man, can really mess up both, your perception and your perspective.
And then to even go further, I think a word that's not out there that we are not using that really feeds into both of these perception and perspective is the influence of the influencer. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, they everyone wants to live vicariously through somebody, especially if you don't have anything going on, you don't have anything going on in your life, or you just like the perception of what is going on in front of you, whether it's drama, whether it's saying someone showing love, and you basically cling to those things that you feel like are at one with you. So, like he was talking about the Melendez brothers, of course, they was convicted. They've been in jail since then. That happened like many moons ago, and so for it to come back and now to be perceived of, let's think about this, right? Remember, for all those who are hip hop heads out there, right? At one point, we talked about the hot thing to sit and speak on was to sit up and rap about, like you said, the money, the clothes, how much you slanging, you know what I'm saying? If you pushing weight, all that type of stuff. That's what everyone was pitting on. But the perspective shifted. And now it's not about the quote unquote the dealer, it's about the abuser, the person that uses it, popping pills, and saying things of that nature. So the whole perspective switch. And it became to where someone decided like this is what resonates in me, and I'm going to sell it to the world and get their perspective. I'm going to give my perspective on it, i.e., what I'm doing, what I'm rapping about, what I'm talking about, and the perception comes back and produces dollars. So is really the influencer, especially in social media, starts to really push that narratives, and those narratives, once they start to get pushed, they start to develop, and then now you have, of course, like you talking about the Menendez brothers, now you have a situation to where they're victims after they committed murder. You know what I'm saying? So it really, like you said, it's powerful. Social media is a powerful tool. It's allowing us to even get this conversation out. You know what I'm saying? To those that's going to see it and those who are going to hear it and continue. It's out there now. You know what I'm saying? It's above us now. It's in the clouds, it's in the metaverse, and that's just what it is. Good, bad, or different.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to just touch on that because I feel like social media, like y'all said, is so powerful, and it can it can have a person look at their perception of, in their minds, reality of, this is how I should be living, versus the perception of like a reality of, this is how I'm really living. But one of the things that I like about perspective is to really understand that when you look at a person and you understand from your own view of what it means to be in so many different scenarios, so many different issues that come up when it comes to social media, when it comes to things that happen through social media. I'll give you a perfect example. You know, that whole thing with Cat Williams. You
Mm-hmm.
know that looking at it, I was reading an article and people were saying, "Oh well, you know, I can't think of his name right now. Shannon, yeah, Shannon Sharp. Like they said that got shared millions and millions of time because again, their perception versus their perspective. Because in reality, the perspective of how Cat Williams felt and how he looked at how he was treated,
Mm-hmm.
turned into a big thing. And so Social media is very, very powerful. It's like one thing comes and then there's another thing that comes right after that. So it's always flowing, it's always going. So there's never gonna be a dull moment when it comes to talking about that. But I just wanted to touch on that because I think that it's a sensitive, but it's a powerful thing in today's society. When it comes to doing podcasts, when it comes to just doing anything like Twitter, like all this stuff that you have out there now, for people to grab that perception of, oh man, like they got this house, they got these cars, they're driving a Benz, so you automatically think, oh, they're rich. I'll give you a perfect example. Trey, you can attest to this. In the military, everyone always thought the perception was, oh, everyone in the military are rich because they saw what they saw. But if you look at it from a different perspective and understand that no, we were struggling, especially when you first came in to the military. You weren't making all that money.
You could have hurt recruiting quotas.
Listen. So the thing is, you would. I know for the Air Force, we would have airmen come in, and they would buy these expensive cars because their perception was that people would like them because of what they had, versus them looking at the perspective of understanding that as long as you're yourself and you live to your means, you don't have to worry about what other people think. You don't have to worry about the perception that others are going to think of you, because they're going to think whatever they think. And I'm testifying to myself, and I know that my big brother AJ Jackson is probably laughing at this because he literally just told me this last night. So I got to give shouts out to him because he literally said this to me last night in a different way, but the same thing. So it's all on how we look at our perspective when it comes to that. So I want to switch gears and talk about ooh, I don't think we have time to talk about this part, but I'm gonna throw it out there. Relationships. When it comes to, I know both of y'all are, in relationships. Y'all are married, and so their perception is what when it comes to marriage versus their perspective. I want y'all to touch on that.
Say that again. What?
So marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at marriage, what is the perception versus their perspective that you all see it through your own eyes, as far as what you've seen being in your marriage?
Go ahead, Trey. It looked like you was in deep thought. Like, man,
I was listening to what he was saying. So you know what? For me, I take it a little different and give a different perspective when with it. So I think the one thing that is not seen, saying, it goes back to what you were saying right earlier when you was talking about how the perception, especially people that post, saying they have their marriage. It's not saying that they aren't, but people tend to be engaged, especially going back into social media, and you can see the postings and stuff like that. So the perception is that everything's peaches and cream and everything like that. But the perspective is, for a lot of time, is that it's work, it's hard. Like there's been a lot that has went on in this situation. You know what I'm saying? That has been, like, you know what I'm saying? There's been trials and tribulations. It's all kinds of stuff that you don't realize, you know what I'm saying? That's got us or got this to this point. And so that's one of those things in which really has to be touched on and be talked about, is that it's a lot that goes into that. You have the situations like Gary was just talking about, past traumas in which both of you or one of you have endured in that process. And then it maybe even be a trauma because now the other has had to endure that and go through it with you, which has on its own restraints and own strengths on strains on that. So that's really something in which to sit up and take a look at and have that and speak on that, because it's work. It's like a 9 to 5 at sometimes, or night shift, 12-hour shifts.
Yeah. The thing that came to my mind is like, man, you know how at the top of the cake you got the man and the woman, they got the suit on and the dress. They need to start changing those because I don't know how long you've been married. It'll be 21 years this year. 21. Last year was 20. Be 21 years this year. They need to change that and have them in the suit in the dress, but then also put hard hats on them. Give one a shovel, give one a pick, and then put some Timberlands on the both of them. You know what I mean? Some work boots. You know, take the slippers and all that off because, like, really, in reality, all of that looks good. The cake look good. They look good in the suit. You look good in your suit and your dress. But the thing that they don't tell you, even while you saying the vows, while you up there, God is giving you the perspective of marriage. He's the perception is, the song and dancing, and they gonna just be at this the love and
Celebrations.
the garter and all, and then God's like for sickness and in health, richer for poor, better for worse. He's giving you the perspective on what this is, and y'all sit up there
He
smiling
removes
at
those
each other.
filters.
Yeah, and you reading your vows like, baby, ever since the first time I met you, I just want to tell you, you're the best thing that happened to me. I just can't see myself without you. Like, 5 years in, like, I don't know if I still want to be here. Like, you be like, but you standing up there and it's gorgeous, right? It's gorgeous, but nobody told us. Nobody told us the amount of effort and sweat equity that you're going to have when it comes to this thing called marriage. Nobody told us that.
Mm. Okay. So when you go through this journey of being married and being in a relationship, and just you are talking about your own, um, like looking at it from a perspective of you know, like you said, Gary, like no one told us all this stuff, and you standing up at the altar and you saying all this stuff, but when you look at it now versus when y'all first got together, do
Mm-hmm.
you see it a different perspective on why you all are still together? Because
Oh,
you've been through so much,
yeah.
and people can always say, I love this analogy when it comes up when people start saying, you came in to my book of life at one different at this chapter, so you don't know chapters 1 through 6. You came
Mm-hmm.
in at chapter 7, but at the end of the day, when I sit back and I look, you know, I get a different perspective because we've been through this thing. We've been through some things
Yep.
together. So I have to look at it from a different perspective in order for us to, have that conversation and continue to go through this journey. So how do you all, when it comes to going through this journey, when you look at the perspective now, do you have a different perspective versus when you first met your significant other?
Yeah. Um, and the perception throughout, especially when you're going through stuff, man, you start questioning everything about the relationship, all of the above, especially when certain parts of those vows start playing themselves out in your life. It's easy, to be madly in love, when everything is, you know, on the upside. But then when, life happens, man, how do you find love in the midst of all of that? And man, it was times to where we almost didn't make it, and I just didn't see nothing changing. But as we've gone through things together and we begin to change our perspective on what things were, it's like it makes it so much worth it to be at this moment where we're at right now. When I tell you, we just had a conversation the other day that was so powerful. Me and my wife did, and we just made some real serious decisions on how we're going to connect moving forward. That changed my perspective on where I thought this thing was headed and what this thing is looking like. I'm like, man, wow. And when you look at it from that perspective and you get God's lenses, on your eyesight, our bodies will tell us like, man, I can't do this. Your mind, you just be going through so much that you just want to check out. But we were not from an abusive standpoint committed, but we committed for better, for worse, richer, for poor, all of that. And that's the commitment that it takes. And when you find out what that really means and y'all walk that out together and then y'all come back on the other side, I believe that topping on the cake can change to the dress and the suit, and then that version of y'all makes sense at the anniversary party. Year 20, year 30, year 40 down the line. It makes so that outfit, that dress, and that suit looks so much better when you've actually gone through those things with your partner, and y'all still find a way to love each other because your perspective is in the proper place.
That's good. That's
It,
good.
it it is, and then I would even take it further, or even maybe not just in the form of marriage, but for the most part, any relationship is a marriage if you think of it in the aspect, like what I'm saying, regardless of not the nuptial type, but friendships, brotherhood,
Yeah,
sisterhood,
facts.
organizations. So all that comes into play when he's talking about this because you need that connection or something like that. You need to be able to recognize and understand all those in which you are dealing with perspectives and what their perceptions are, so that way you understand how to navigate the situations and how to talk in one or how to communicate with one another. Because without that, then you basically it's out there. So when you start to commit that, or they throw the term around, uh let's say in organizations like fraternities and sororities, sisters and brothers, to where really, because there has been perceptions that have been conjured in this situation, that perception starts to minuscule the perspective, and it starts to blow everything up. And then that's why you start to have other people that are looking in, that look at certain organizations and be like, oh, that now the stigmas come in, that that organization ain't about anything. I've
Yep.
had plenty of people that have, of course, we have the term church hurt, and which is again perspectives and perceptions, in which it builds upon it. Then if no one stops to have a conversation or give their perspective or their perception,
Yep.
again, have to change someone's the idealization, to where they have to break that bond, in which they realize like, okay, maybe there is. And then you put this in the situation, so it really does play a place in all types of relationships.
And I just want to say something real quick because me and Kevin's relationship, even first meeting him, I think we started joking with each other like immediately,
Mhm.
like
We did.
immediately, like day one, and he looking at me like like man, like dog, who is this dude? But once we started having real conversations, and he started telling me some in-depth things about his life, my perception of him could have been XYZ,
Correct.
but because I have discernment, and then on top of that, perspective, because he don't know. See, it's crazy how God be doing stuff, man. And I ain't gonna get too churchy on y'all, but it's
You
crazy how
good?
God be doing stuff. Cause I had a brother that I was working out with named Jason, who was ex-military, and we in the gym at 4 in the morning, like because I wasn't a weightlifting type person, but he like come to the gym, man, all of the above, and I'm there with him in the gym for it, and and we built this relationship, but he also dealt with some PTSD and dealt with suicidal thoughts and things of that nature. So I'm journeying that with him, and you know, towards the end of his life, sadly, on my way to church, all he said was, goodbye. I just saw him on Tuesday, and then I saw him earlier, and he helped me with my car and everything. We had like a crazy good time together that day, and him and his wife was going through something. He was like, man, she didn't even say she hasn't been saying I love you and stuff like that. They were on the phone together, and he was like, well, you want me to bring some food by and stuff like that, all the above. She was like, yeah, can't wait to see you. And then she said, love you. And then they hung up, and I'm pushing them. I'm like, see, I'm like hyping them up, and that was one of the fondest memories I had with him. And then that Tuesday we're in the gym, and he's been like that before. Hey man, if I'm a little off, I'm just tired. This, and the third, and I ain't think nothing of it. Left it alone. Come Sunday, he checked out.
Mm.
So years later, I meet Kev, military, and they share some similarities. But I've been through that, so my perspective of
Mm-hmm.
him,
Mm.
you know what I'm saying?
That's
So
good.
it you when you go through stuff and you see that, it's like I'm equipped to I have an opportunity to speak to him differently than what is perceived when you first meet somebody and
The
you
tools
share
added.
that with them
Mm-hmm.
versus share certain things with them versus when you meet somebody who don't really understand and then you try to share and they can't really go there with you to that degree because their perspective it can't it doesn't line up with what they're perceiving when they hear certain things. And sorry for being long-winded, but I just connected those two, and I just felt the need to share that because I left Texas and went to California and did all that, but then right when I came back, we just hung out not too long ago, and it's like I never left.
Mm.
So these things that we perceive about each other, if you really have the proper perspective, you can go all the way on the other side of the planet and come back, and it'll be like nothing changed. You won't perceive nothing new about that person because your perspective of who they are, who they truly are, if you really know them, will never change.
Man, that's so good because at the end of the day, when we when we talk about perspective, and Gary, thanks for sharing that because you know we always talk about I can leave, like Gary said, I can go somewhere and or not even go nowhere. Are we in the same city and we don't talk for weeks, but we can get on the phone and be like we just talked yesterday.
Yep.
So the understanding of perspective and the understanding of really seeing somebody for who they are, I think is very important because when you and I said this last week, but when you look through a different lens,
Yep.
you tend to get a different perspective of someone. Because like when I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and it just seemed like that was the norm with me. I have this, you know, this face. Y'all get what I'm saying? Like I don't have any emotion. So when people see me, they're like, "Man, he mean." And that was the perception that everybody gay, but when they saw a different perspective and they got to know me and they got to see the type of person I was, they changed their perspective and their perception of how the type of person that I was. So I think that's very important when we're talking about perspective versus perception, is because a person can look at you, and I wrote some stuff down. When you look at a person that is having, like, they can come in, they can have a guy can have his hair braided to the back, he can have on all the jewelry, he can have on the pants sagging, and automatically most people would probably think, oh, he up to no good because of the perception of how he's dressed. We have gotten into the society has pushed us into this mode of, I look at you and I automatically have a perception of you based upon how you dressed, how you look.
Hmm.
But the perspective of it is, if I got to know you, I would understand that this is who I am, but it does not define me as a person. It only shows what society says and what they categorize it as being a thug, or that nature. So people are going to say, "Oh, well, you're this, you're that because of this," but they don't know that you have a doctorate. They don't know that you
Mm.
own a 500 Fortune 500 company. All
Hmm.
they see in their perception is what's in front of them. And so I always tell people, man, one thing that I don't do, I don't judge a person. because you gotta look at it from a different perspective and understand that people are gonna be people, but you gotta get to know who they are to understand. Like they can be somebody totally different from what you
Yep.
perceive them to be, but if you take the time to understand who they are, I think that that helps. So I just wanted to us to segue into that. When it talks about, when you talk about, just dressing a certain way, that perception can go a long way. So what do y'all say about that?
So funny thing, right? When you said earlier when you was talking about being in the military, so I'm from Compton, California, and so I went to basic training in '94. During that time frame, I came home from basic training for Christmas Exodus because it was during that time frame. I went late '94, like in November. That's when I entered and came and went into service. So I go home for Christmas Exodus, and I'm walking around, saying the streets. I don't know why or how I got. Somehow I bumped into a friend, someone that I knew that we went to high school together, and so I'm assuming I hadn't been seen in a long time. Prior to that, me graduating and going from September, not September, from June, July of '94 till the time in which they see me to December of '94. Um, three, 2.5, a month and a half of that, I've been in basic training, which means I've been getting dropped, I've been getting smoked, I've been doing push-ups, I've been running, I've been doing all these different things. So when I left Compton to go to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, I was like 150 pounds, 6'1", 150, so scrawny, you're right. But when they see me, now I done got a little muscle on me, the body look different. And do you know what the first thing that they ask me when they see me? Have you been locked up?
Yep. I
Wow.
knew he was gonna say it.
Have you been locked up? It was like, dang, you got some signs. You've been locked up. And so, so now
That's crazy.
so now it's like, why? And then now that gives me, now have this conversation, like I've talked about this before, plainly and all that jokingly, but now it puts me in the mind frame of what was the perception that they had of me, to where I think because I've been gone, like I've been gone because I've been locked up. Like you ain't seen me in the hood, like around the cities or anything like that. I was locked up. Like that's what you thought of me in the last 6 months. And we're so, so it's like that type of stuff, and it'd be your own people. But your old people. But but it was crazy when I asked. I was like, no, I'm in the military. I was like, I was basic training. I'm home because it's a break. And it's like, oh, okay, yada yada yada. So it really, like you said, dressing a certain type of way, like I've like it is what it is. That's just a part of it. Remember, at one point you had in the NBA where they were able to dress in the long shorts, chains, whatever, to be on the sideline. David Stern said we have a image to uphold, so he disengaged from that. And if you wasn't in uniform, your street clothes was a suit or something like that, sitting on the sideline and all that type of stuff. So it speaks to certain aspects and breaks it down to where certain people look at it and they view it and they see, though I guess the ideal was if people on the outside looking in or seeing is like, oh, we have all these young men that's in suits and stuff like that have the look of professionalism, just like we was talking about with the young lady who had the trauma and perceived you in a way, although you was in a professional environment, they decided to try to create a professional environment based on how you dress, as opposed to what was worn before with Allen Iverson with 6 chains on, a feather suit or something like that. So it really plays a part, and it comes all down to society, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm from Detroit, so man, fashion is like huge in Detroit. Like that's like, man, you like that's I learned all my swag and how you supposed to dress and all that like there. And when I was younger with my mom, single mother, 4 boys, welfare, all the above, I didn't have all the latest and greatest stuff. So the perception was that I was dirty. Even if I washed my clothes the day before and I probably wore it, like they done seen the outfit before, the perception was I was dirty. Like, cause I didn't have the freshest clothes. So that was like the I used to get teased. They used to call me that, Dirty Gary. Like I had, my clothes was dirty. But the the perspective is that, my mom, we don't make a lot of money. So I'm not necessarily, you know, uh dirty. It's just that when you come from a certain set of circumstances, I'm not, I don't have any money. So am I really? But that's the perception when you don't have the freshest and nicest clothes, as we talking about, somebody, with cornrows and, got, they pants sack and all the above. People can look at you and perceive one thing, but don't understand what your reality really is. And that's the part all the time, especially when it comes to clothes, man. Like it's just crazy anyway, because not everybody can dress. It don't matter, even if you do got money and you put on something, that don't necessarily mean it
You
look
ain't
good.
lying.
I
But
don't care. I don't care what your perspective is. You ain't about to walk up in here with the trash bag nines on, talking about y'all ain't woke. Like, I'm wide awake and that's trash what you got
No,
on.
sir.
Like, I don't care. I don't care how much money you got. You not about to run up in here with cooking utensils stitched to your pants. Like we not. It's just.
yeah, so
I guess that is perception. Depending on how you decide to dress or how you rocking it that way or whatever.
I think perceptions go out the window when you get money.
yeah, so when we talk about perception, and we talk about you know people who have money versus people middle class or whatever. I remember I watch they used to do this thing on I think it was on YouTube. They used to do these videos to where you would have people go on the street and they would dress like they're homeless and see how people treat
Yeah,
them.
yeah, I see.
And you would really start to see how people treat someone, and you look back, and then it could be people that and you're like, oh no, they're nice, they're this way, they're that way. But the perception is when you see a homeless person, your automatic thinking is, oh, well, they this, they that, but you don't know what happened. I always say this to people: a person's smile and what they've been, you don't know the previous chapters.
Mm.
So when you look at a person and you look at that perception of, oh, well, they're homeless, but then when you actually sit down and talk to them, you're like, wow. So I work at the VA here in Dallas, and I used to work, my first job was working with the homeless program. And, before, I really never really worked with the homeless. And so I never understood a lot about homelessness. Um, but that year and a half that I did, it gave me a different perspective on people that were homeless. It made
Mhm.
me really understand that a lot of people go through stuff that sometimes is not on them. It's really the fact of things come up, you know, house burn down, lose their job. The pandemic really hurt a lot of people
Mhm.
because America shut down after that. And so I when I look at these two words, and I really look at perception. Perception is everything, but it's really how you um, perceive it to be, and but you have to look at it from a different lens. And I say that because when you look at it from one lens, it's the lens that everyone else is looking at,
Yeah.
because that's the lens that you hear people saying this and that, and so you're looking through the same lens, judging or saying whatever. But when you change and you go to a different lens that no one else has looked at, you tend to start seeing that at the end of the day, that's not the real perspective of what I have on this person. But I have this understanding that these people are so different in that way. So you know when you're dressed a certain way, like we're talking about dressing, I can come to work every day and I can be dressed in a suit. but I could be homeless and living in my car. But the
Yeah.
thing is, the perception that everybody will have is, oh, he got money because he dressed in a different suit every day. But it's all on the perspective of the person of how they want to live. So um, when we talk about perception and we talk about perspective, how do we change that? How do we how can a person, or do you think that a person's perception can be changed? I know that's a hard, like, just out there question, but I want to know from you all, like, can a person's perception um towards people really change when they start to look at, man, I'm doing this, and I'm saying to myself, hey, I'm not a person that judges people, but when you look at a person and you automatically, again, I think, Trey, you talked about it earlier, when you see a woman clutch her purse, that's the perception of, oh, this maybe African American man about to rob me, because that's the perception that she has had. But
Yeah.
then she'll say, oh, well, no, I'm not this way. But again, it's the perception. But again, if you change your lens and you look at it from a
Yeah.
different perspective and talk to somebody, it will change. So answer that for me, guys. Like, when it comes to that, can we make a change for the better, so we can stop judging and we can stop looking at people differently, but look at people as people instead of looking at people in different lenses?
So going back to what you were just saying just a few minutes ago about the homeless. So I worked as well for a homeless shelter in for 3 years, but our perspectives are a little bit different when it comes down to homeless. Like I think I went in initially with your mindset of like, okay, you know what I'm saying, this is what you see, like, wow, it changed my perspective of seeing these things. But then as I done it, like maybe midway through the situation, I started thinking to myself, like, homeless people are some of the most privileged people there is out there. Like some of the stuff in which I have to endure with them, I'm like, I'm trying to help you get a job, and you're telling me I don't want this job. I'm telling you, like, hey, I got the cook up, I got this job for you over here. All you got to do is go to the job. I don't have a way there. You have a bike outside. I don't want to ride my bike. Say less. Word. I was like, this is what we doing. Like, wow. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? And this fact to live, like, you know what I'm saying, just laid up, chilling and doing whatever. And so I was like, this is not what I thought it is. And then you had those, and I think what kept it on the, you know, saying that's just, you know, saying just I'm playing for real. But when it, I mean, that happened, but my perspective didn't change because you still had those that in-state that came into the program and they worked, and some of them left with a $20 an hour job after they was just in this homeless shelter for whatever reason. So, you know what I'm saying, it always happens, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier is in state, what it, how you get people to change their mind isn't really up to you. Like we can sit and talk about the sky is blue all day long, but a person with a different perspective or perception is going to tell you that the sky is clear and what you're seeing is the prisms. And it's like, so you know what, you got it. You know what I'm saying? You know what, I don't know what I was thinking. You know what I'm saying? So you just have to basically go with that. So it really comes down to what a person's ideals and what their thoughts are, and if you're able to change their mind, and if they're willing to change their mind to see it from your perspective or hear your perception and go with that and utilize it to, you know, saying, change theirs a little. And it, you know, saying in state, you know, saying only three people know the truth. It's three sides, only one knows the truth. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what it comes down to be.
Man, I feel like you definitely can persuade people, even in the midst of them knowing something is wrong. You still can persuade them to follow you if you have enough influence.
Mm.
Their perspective and the perception of the things is exactly what they're looking at. But if you hungry, you want money, you want to do this, you willing to overlook all of those things and willing to follow the perspective of that person that has what you want. And that's been a part of the problem. They,
Mm.
it's wrong, but the desire, for that thing trumps, the proper perspective. And that's just what this life literally is in a nutshell. There's no way you can tell me as a leader of the free world or a country or whatever it is going to invade somebody and just dropping bombs, all of the above, regardless on how you feel, regardless on, he said my mom, whatever struck the match. Nothing in your mind told you, hold on, let me go have a conversation and get some form of perspective on what is really going on. It's like this stuff get rooted in us, and it's wrong. I don't care what nobody say. They like, man, they give us all the historical facts and all of the above, but you can persuade, people to look at another race and say that you're inferior just with words. I don't talk about Hitler a lot, but I'm like, this dude was a nobody. Not no disrespect. Well, a lot of disrespect. This dude was really like, from a historical standpoint of who he is. I'm not just saying that, based on what he did, but from a historical standpoint, there's nothing in his history that says leadership. Any of that. There was nothing, no basis or nothing to stand on. But he had an idea that a bunch of people agreed with, and he was able to persuade them to get behind him, and his agenda came alive, and the atrocity, which is the Holocaust, was all out of perception. All of what he perceived of another. So as we're talking about this thing is powerful through his lenses and his perception of another race birthed the Holocaust.
Mm.
And you know what? And you know what? Please don't judge me. Don't perceptions. Please leave y'all perceptions at the door. I look at I look at a lot of ID network, right? And just the other day on the ID channel, in which they was talking about Jim Jones, when Gary just said that,
Another one, yeah.
being able to persuade people. And I was sitting there thinking, like, I was like, I would have been one of the ones shot at the airport, because I was like, matter of fact, I don't even know how I got over to Ghana. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, Guyana, but you know what I'm saying? That's neither here nor there. But like, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, how? Like, how does this happen? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you put yourself in this position?
They
And
knew
it's
it
like,
was, some of them knew it was wrong too. Some of them, they
yeah,
knew, that's
and
why they
yet
was leaving.
still,
They
yeah.
they knew why they was there, and they was in it, that it was wrong. But once again, like we talked about, man, because he had something, he presented something that a lot of people desired. Just imagine if his perspective was correct. He was trying to be like, to them, like, we're going to build this community of freedom and love, and we're not going to be chained by the perspective of Western worlds and all these different things, that we can live off the land, whatever he was trying to tell them. And then it went left, and it just, whatever indoctrinated fear that will cause you to drink the Kool-Aid,
That's
as
the
the
culture
term.
name. Yeah,
Yeah, the culture in that. So when we talking about both of these two people, and obviously people throughout history, it makes us question, like, y'all know that these people is just, they're wrong. But if you're hungry, right? If this is your land, and these people that's ruling, they got the food, they got the grain, they got the, what you gonna do? You gonna sit there knowing that the perspective and their ideology is dead wrong, but you hungry, you don't speak no other language, you don't know where to go, you don't know what to do. What's gonna happen? You gonna sit right there and watch them maim people and do all the above. But as long as you get your soup.
Mm. So Henry Dozier says we all make assumptions off what we see. I look at it as a defense mechanism. Is that right? No, but I will allow you to show me who you are and move from there.
Facts.
Thank you, Henry, for sharing that. You know, that last part. Show me who you are, and I think, I go back to I'm big when it comes to poetry and all of that, and I think about Maya Angelou and what she said. Show me who you are, and when they show you who they are, believe them because they're showing you who they truly are. And sometimes people, do this, showing who they are to try to impress people. Um, back in the day, I know, growing up in school, we used to try to impress people, impress the ladies to, you know, this and that, just to try to get them and hook them. But at the end of the day, that perception fades away because you're being somebody you're not. But what Henry is talking about, I really understand because when you show me who you are, it gives me a perspective on what type of person you are. Like you was talking about me, Gary,
Mm-hmm.
but when you really get to know a person and you see who they are, that's what you go with until they show you something different. And
Yep.
so that then comes that perception of this is who I perceive you to be.
Mm.
But you flipped it on me some way through our relationship because of whatever happened. And so I appreciate that. There was and I know I want to come to a close, but I mean, we can continue to talk about this forever. But there was something that I had shared on my Facebook when I talked about perspective, and I love this because I've seen it and I always talk about it. So there's a picture of a man who's in a wheelchair, and in the wheelchair he says he can go wherever he wants. He's looking down at someone that's at the bus stop. All right. So then it goes on. The man at the bus stop is looking at someone that's riding a bike, and he says, "I wish I had a bike." The man that's on a bike is looking at the car and says, "If only I could afford a car." The man that's in the car is looking at a better car and says, "Look at that new car." So be thankful. It says, be thankful for what you have. Perspective is everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, and I shared it on my page because I think that we look at society, we look at social media, we look at all of this stuff, and we say to ourselves, "Man, I wish I had that. I wish I had that." But in the back of the person's mind, I wish I had what you had.
Mm.
You got a good life, and I'm talking about myself because I've done this, and again, I think about what uh man he be on it. What AJ Jackson said to me, he said, at the end of the day, look at it. It's all on how you look at the perspective because your life is going good, but the perception and you looking at it from a totally different lens because you're worried about what people perceive you to be. But the perspective is that you are a good person. But the perception is that people are looking at you, and it could be three or four people that might look at you and say something totally different. So I wanted to talk about that and just say that because I think that when we get out in society and you look and you see a person that got a nice car, you're like, man, I wish I had that. And then you see a person that's walking and a person in a wheelchair saying that I wish I could walk and go somewhere. So it's all on how the perspective on how you look at it from your lens. And so we have to be grateful for where we're at, but we sometimes get in this mode of understanding like, man, I want to be here. But you gotta be able to be at one level before you get to the next level. So it's all on the perspective and how you look at things. So man, I thank you, brothers. I thank you. We could go on and on with this conversation. It was just something that I felt like needed to be talked about. So I appreciate you all coming on tonight. So what I would like is for you all to give your final words, anything you want to say on what we talked about, anything you want to put out I'll start with you, Trey.
So, of course, in state, what you think about it is, for the most part, I always say that everyone has their own perception, and their perception is the reality. So it does a great deal of to in the society for the most part to basically take a heed that and pay attention and understand what a person is saying and get their perception, and then it basically make everything so much better because the way things are going, as we just talked about earlier, social media, you have people that have influence, and with that influence that can make or break some people. We have the cancel culture. Why is the cancel culture so prevalent? Because influence and people's perception are able to be minuscule. So just take that into consideration. And with that being said, it'll make things so much easier, in my opinion, and it's very helpful.
Gary, last final thoughts.
A vision that I got was a filtration. Not to sound all deep and everything, but what I got in my mind is you know dirty water going through a filtration system or whatever it is. It's like, man, it's so much stuff that be coming at us and so many things that be happening in life, and what you filter it through to get the purity of the thing, to get the realness of what that is everything. And our problem a lot of times that we don't have a filtration system. We don't have counseling. We don't have pastors. We don't have fathers, mothers, or people to, like, if we're dealing with an issue, to go to, and they help us filter these things out and give us some form of clarity. And I feel like that's what's needed in any situation, right, wrong, or indifferent. If you're questioning it, or if it's something that you're having a hard time understanding, if you have the right people to help you filter the information through, man, things will get a lot clearer for you. And that's my perspective on having the proper perspective.
Okay. Now I know I said it that your final thoughts, and that was a bit, but I'm a big quote person. I am a big quote person. I have over thousands and thousands of quotes that I have saved over the years.
This better be
So
good.
so I wanted to
Right.
I hear y'all. I wanted to just say these quotes because I highlighted some. Um, so one says every person has a different view of another person's image. That's all perception. The character of a man, the integrity, that's who you are. Steve Alford. Um, People see what they want to see, and what people want to see isn't always the truth.
Facts.
Reality is always kinder than the stories we tell about it.
Mm-hmm.
What people in the world think of you is really none of your business.
Mm.
We must not allow other people's perceptions to define us.
Mm-hmm.
Reality is based on perception. And then the last one is not what you look at that matters, it's what you see.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to just say those quotes because I love quotes, and I love the way that they really speak and what people say. But I thank you guys for coming on, and this being an authentic conversation. And we touched on a lot of different subjects. So I appreciate y'all. So again, thank y'all for joining. Share this conversation. Look forward to conversation number 17. No, I'm sorry, 16. I'm tripping. Conversation number 16 coming next week. I can't
17.
wait.
17.
It's
Yeah,
17.
you
Okay.
had it right.
Yeah, 17 coming next week. I look forward to it. Again, no matter if it's early morning, mid-afternoon, or late at night. A cup of Joe and a conversation will always get you right. This has been Coffee and Conversation with Kevin Smith. Have a good night.